Hello, everybody. TGIF. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for joining me here at a different time. I know around 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much. This is Friday. I know we did not meet yesterday. I was at the UN and then I was on BBC News. I hope you saw that video. If not, I put it in yesterday's newsletter, which first things first, if you're not subscribed, please do so. You can go to onestnetwork.com. Everything is in the description of this episode, or on all my social media, whether Blue Sky or Twitter or anything, I do have it pinned. So if you're on Substack, just look for Onest, O-N-E-S-T, and there you'll get your news briefing. So Monday through Friday. I'll keep it short, factual, but so you can have your news all in one space. And there I put the BBC video in case you missed it. There we talked about, or I shared my opinion and analysis of Trump's remarks at the press conference in London next to Prime Minister Starmer. There were some disagreements on Palestine. There were some disagreements on Putin. So I did provide some analysis there. I hope you caught that. Now, we have a lot of news to cover today. It will be national news, it will be global news, and also some special coverage from Patriarch Bartholomew, who was today in New York City. Well, he was yesterday at the UN, today at the Council on Foreign Relations. And I wanted just to share what he told us, right? And the address that he delivered, which is very, very profound. And then, of course, we're going to end today also with some funny and silly things. And, just make sure that we end this broadcast before the weekend on a good note. All right? Or silly note. Let's put it that way. Hi, Michael. Hello. Honest. Yes. Honest just wrote a message. Okay. Thank you again for being here. Now, before we get into the important and global issues and all that, first, what came just recently, 30 minutes ago, because Trump was late, and I really wanted to, kind of report on that, hence I'm late. Anyway, so he did sign executive orders. This is what we got. First, he did sign on H-1B visa reform. Now, this administration is imposing $100,000 fee to prioritize U.S. workers and raise wages. Now, this is a big issue, and I do have a readout on that later, because this will affect the Silicon Valley and altogether AI and IT business and tech industry the most. So second executive order is on post-quantum cryptography, accelerating adoption to counter cyber threats. Third is DI revocation. It ends federal diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. So the difference here is from January 20th on this year, Trump was targeting specific organizations with separate executive orders. And here is just one executive order just prohibiting. And let's just recap what DI stands for: diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're banning this now federally. So Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, he established national crypto stockpile, obviously, who will be the main person to benefit from it. I'll let you guess. There's one guess, and I think you get there pretty fast. And another thing I wanted to show, he also put up at the White House all kinds of promotions, so to speak. You see here, this was just now, half hour ago. The Trump card is here. So if you go to trumpcard.gov, you find all about this Trump card, which essentially grants somebody with money citizenship. Meanwhile, as I reported on Thursday this week, the changes were introduced for naturalization for people who got their green cards legally, who lived here for 6+ years legally, paid tax, did nothing wrong. They speak, read, and understand English. They know the civics, so they can pass that test. You have to learn 100 questions. So now you also have to prove that you have, what MAGA really wants. You have to show what they say, good character, to get your citizenship. Aside from what is legally required, now you also have to be, in favor of the regime, so to speak, on social media and whatnot. Now, because I trust you, you will never go to trumpcard.gov. So why not go there together? Because I went there out of kicks and giggles, and I was mesmerized. And I really want to show it to you. Here we go. So this is the Trump Gold Card. And by the way, as you see here, an official website of the United States government. And the Trump Gold Card is here, Unlock Life in America. And so here you have exclusive privileges, right? So Trump Gold Card for processing fee, and after DHS vetting, a 1 million contribution. Here I want to draw your attention to this. There is a processing fee, right? And then after the vetting, you also have to donate to Trump thing, $1 million, right? So this is not the official fee. This is the contribution. And then you receive your U.S. residency in record time with Trump Gold Card. And then there is Trump Platinum Card that is also coming up. So sign up now and secure your place on the waiting list for Trump Platinum Card. Now that stuff cost you $5 million. Again, not special fee. It's the contribution to Trump Fund. And you will have the ability to spend up to 270 days in the United States without being subject to U.S. tax on non-U.S. income. Now, that stuff was for individuals. Now, here, let's explore businesses. Check this out. For $2 million contribution, received U.S. residency in record time with the Trump Corporate Gold Card for your employees. So now this is the immigration in masses. After a processing fee and DHS vetting, on board your preferred candidate. So, I mean, I don't know, you define slavery, but if the leader of the pack is picking whoever they prioritize to import to the United States and grant them citizenship, I mean, listen. The Trump Corporate Gold Card allows your business to transfer access from one employee and grant it to another with the cost of a transfer fee. So you put your slave up to, wherever in the U.S. And like how that worked out, screw their family and whatever life they had in the United States, just replace them with another person. Who cares? Because you are, the leader of the pack. Embrace it. Now, with the cost of a transfer fee and DHS vetting, a small annual maintenance fee will also apply. Probably this will be also donated. Okay, so gold card, platinum card, corporate card. From $1 million to $5 million to more. Now, how's that thing goes? Submit your application. Your opportunity begins here with your application and non-refundable processing fee. Now, that is also non-refundable. This is the first step to securing Trump Gold Card. Second, careful consideration. United States Citizenship and Immigration Services facilitates in-depth background check and process to vet the potential cardholder. I think they're looking how much money and what's your worth is, what's your net worth is. And that's the most important. And approval. Once an applicant is approved, a Trump Gold Card will be available for use throughout all 50 states and territories. And so this is how you file if you're interested. My name is, gonna put it up here, from, where the heck you from, right? You can just put Asia, North America. Look at this. Not the countries. They just go by Caribbean, Africa, South America, Central America. Wow. Great stuff. And then you do it for yourself, for your family, for your spouse, or other. You can also put a cat and the name, and then you submit. Now, what is the Trump Gold Card? Trump Gold Card visa based upon an individual's ability to provide substantial benefit to the United States. To apply, an applicant must pay non-refundable processing fee. Once an applicant processing fee is received, the process of visa adjudication, Okay. What is Trump Gold Corporate? We read that. Then Okay. Now, legal classification. That's interesting. As appropriately determined by Department of Homeland Security and subject to availability, an applicant receives lawful permanent resident status as an EB1, EB2 visa holder. Now, here I do have a question. If you immigrated to United States or anywhere, to be frank, you do understand that there's two things, right? One is visas. Visas is not permanent residency. If you ever went to U.S. Embassy or any embassy, anywhere, there are two windows. One is visas and temporary visitor. Another is immigration, where you seek legal status. So EB1, EB2 is a visa holder. So why are we then talking about citizenship? So before you pay up that $1 million, check. Now, what's the tax implication? Applicants will be treated similarly to other permanent residents and citizens. Can it be revoked? Trump Gold Card is a visa. Now, therefore, national security and other risks are a basis of revocation. So, are you granting citizenship with all the benefits, right? Or are you granting a visa, EB1, EB2 visa, it's investor visa, that can be revoked? Or are we reshaping citizenship now that any immigrant in the United States, even though green card holder or citizen, does not enjoy the ability to rely on the Constitution and the freedoms that we have just because you weren't born here? So that could be revoked? Like, what's the deal here? Platinum, we read about that. Why is there a waiting list? Has not been released yet. Applicants should join the wait list now. They will be processed on first come, first serve basis. And it's a Trump Gold Card. Submit your application with the eagle and all that kind of stuff. So what you guys think? Oh, that eagle looks at you. Let me remove that eagle. Thank you, Mr. Eagle. Is it a visa? Is it a green card? Is it a citizenship? But it can be revoked. The fee is non-refundable. You can also import your employees, but you also can change them if you don't like them. I have so many questions. More questions than answers. Hey guys, hey Tidy Whitey. Thank you so much for capturing that video at BBC yesterday. Thank you so much. I'm so sick of the, yes, Paul. Hello. Hi, Ignacio. He couldn't even pronounce these words, right? Doc says, hola, hola, hello. He has his hidden face on the card. Yeah, hideous face, yeah. What else? He's going to sell citizenship to Russians. It's going to jump up. Exactly. And about Project 2025, don't forget that Project 2025 just describes 180 days, the first 180 that we have passed. So, here, hello. Oh, yeah, you come, oh, platinum. Yes. And if you call now, you get a complimentary pair of gold. No, that comes at additional fee. No. People without Trump Gold Cards, as Ignacio, are now supplicants, right? Yeah. So, and then again, the birthright to citizenship is also being questioned. because I put it in the newsletter yesterday. Please read it. We can't go into this today because we have a lot to discuss. But there I said that the immigration to Canada has jumped up 30%. And yes, there's people from Mexico and Venezuela, but they're also kids born in the United States. So by birth, they should be American. But because their parents entered the United States illegally without status, now they are forced to immigrate. And so they're running to Canada, which is the obvious result, right? Paul says, I'm trying to get to Canada. Well, there's one guy who was doing the, he went on a boat and he crossed and he was admitted. So, anywho, that's what I wanted to show you because I know you're not going to visit that website. And we give them one click, one visit. I might have to remove that eagle because backstage, I still have it looking at me. Okay, done. All right, now let's get to the real news and the actual news. So Trump and Xi Jinping held a call today, which Trump has tweeted way in advance, right? A couple of days ago, he tweeted that he's going to speak to Xi Jinping and this will be tremendous and bigly and hot. Now, today he spoke to Xi Jinping, signaling progress on several fronts, right? So they say that they agreed on trade, fentanyl, and the war in Ukraine, while also approving a deal that allows TikTok to continue operating in the United States. Trump tweeted, I just completed a very productive call with President Xi of China. We made progress on many very important issues and approval of TikTok deal. The call was a very good one, and we will be speaking again by phone. Appreciate the TikTok approval. I mean, TikTok existed in the United States. United States demanded ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, to divest from TikTok. And you are thanking bigly Xi Jinping, the leader of China, for approving that deal. You should be approving their actions because you were not happy with what they created. So you put them into circumstances where they have to pivot and adjust, and they have to pivot and you have to approve. So I don't understand this part here. But here, we also mentioned they're going to meet in the appropriate time. Now, what really matters? Now, what we really know about the deal. So according to Wall Street Journal, has been confirmed by others by now, a new U.S. entity will be created to operate TikTok. Roughly 80% of entity will be owned by a mix of new investors and existing backers. All are MAGA donors and supporters. ByteDance will hold under 20% per U.S. law requirement. That is what I mean, that U.S. put China into position of pivoting, in need of pivoting. That was done by the Biden administration. Now, Oracle will continue managing U.S. user data, and that is the biggest takeaway here. Oracle, same Larry Ellison, who sponsors his son's deal to buy Paramount, Warner Brothers, the data is same spot. Now, Trump allies Jeff Yass, William Ford, and Larry Ellison are among those tied to the new ownership structure. Also, the government will be able to name one person on the board. Probably will get some type of a cut, but this hasn't been disclosed. ByteDance has not commented on the agreement and key details, especially over control of TikTok's algorithms. The reason why we even started this whole process and how we ended up here, because Biden administration said, national security is compromised because you are controlling algorithms, plus you're storing data. Now, that still remains unclear. Now, Wendy Cutler, Senior Vice President and Asia Society Policy Institute at the Asia Society Policy Institute and a former Deputy U.S. Trade Negotiator, the source that I heavily rely on, she described this conversation as positive and constructive. And so per her evaluation analysis, so Trump will meet Xi in South Korea by end of October at the APEC summit. Now, both leaders agreed to visit each other in 2026. While TikTok progress is notable, irritants remain: fentanyl, soybeans, critical minerals, Chinese manufactured exports. China wants U.S. concessions on tariffs and export controls areas Washington is hesitant to move on. right? So she says Beijing is displaying willingness to play hardball and the need to get paid by Washington for any concessions it makes. This will complicate the tasks, right, or talks. Now, there are open questions. First, who's going to control the algorithm? From what I hear, algorithm will be still controlled by China. And I will, tell you otherwise once I have proof for it and if I get there. Now, will China secure concessions on tariffs and export rules? Can broader US-China irritants be so resolved before the derail progress, right? But here, I want to combine just two little things here. Because, first of all, this morning, I woke up to reports from Chinese state media where they said, this is so fantastic. TikTok was never our priority, but Taiwan was. We bought ourselves Taiwan with the TikTok deal. This is what is reported by the Chinese state media. They're not talking about Oracle and 80/20 and who's controlling the algorithm. Forget it. They're saying we have bought Taiwan with the stupid TikTok deal that has never been the priority. Is that true? Here's a piece of news. Trump blocks $400 million U.S. military aid to Taiwan. Remember in June, the Congress approved $500 million in aid for Taiwan? Yep. Yeah. Now, the Washington Post reports President Donald Trump has blocked $400 million U.S. military aid package for Taiwan, citing two reasons. Ongoing trade negotiations with China. So is Chinese state media right? I'm so flabbergasted that at this stupid timeline, we have to believe China more than we believe Washington, D.C. This is just like the most obnoxious reality check that I never thought we will be at. Yesterday, I was at UN headquarters. I spoke to different diplomats. I posted about it on Blue Sky. The diplomats are saying, American dream is over. That's off the record. They're sending their kids abroad now. They're like, okay, we've got to regroup. There is no need to study here, remain here. What's going to be here? You better go and study elsewhere and get a job in the UK, for instance. That was brought up yesterday. And essentially what they're saying is, well, China is becoming a world power. To which my question was, well, but there's dollar as the currency. Until China has some type of currency that dominates it, US still will be the global player, to which they said, well, do you know that under the BRICS regime, off the record, we do have already agreement signed for BRICS currency. Now, we're not going to tank the dollar because we, same as you, make money off of Wall Street. Seeing is believing, a lot of buzz, but the BRICS diplomats from those countries, but all also noted, as all aside from China, the C in BRICS, noted that living under the Chinese regime will feel very different. They will weaponize Western values, meaning democracy. Don't forget that, yes, in this, forgive me, shit show of a timeline, China looks like a reliable, strategic, careful, law-based and law-abiding partner. But don't forget historically, did they kill people? Did they intimidate minorities? Just Google it if you don't know. Or we can dive into it if you want. But it's a regime. It's a very straightforward regime. You want to open an LLC, you're going to be paying a percentage to China, to Chinese government. They also always have to have access to all your data. It's a very transparent regime. So that's what they know. That is also what brought them here. That's what makes them, in this crazy environment, a reliable partner, because they do exercise control. Having said that, let's talk a bit more on China. Now, the decision on Taiwan by Trump marks significant shift in U.S. posture toward Taipei at moment of heightened tensions with Beijing. Remember, Beijing announced that their deadline to take over Taiwan is 2027. While past administrations steadily expanded military support, Trump has framed Taiwan as wealthy enough to bear the cost of its security and as a bargaining chip in broader talks with China. The move is likely to draw sharp criticism from US lawmakers across party lines, many of whom see Taiwan as a critical front line in deterring Chinese aggression. So we did sell Taiwan, not that we own Taiwan, but you know what I mean. We protect them. So we sold out Taiwan's reliance and trust for a TikTok deal, probably with the cut to this administration / regime. So interesting, right? Hey, Sean. Hello. I found Olga this morning as the podcast and already. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That was such a good discussion. Guys, if you haven't watched it, it's like a 2 hour, 20 minutes. It was long. I mean, I'm abusing you with my presence, like for real. But we did the deep dive. We talked about Canada. We talked about global politics, Trump, everything. So please watch it. If you do have time and patience, please do. But very, very welcome here, Sean. Thank you so much for joining. Paul says, and yes, the ice was frozen 27 on Lake Erie just before the mouth of Niagara. Okay, you guys are talking about something. Okay. Mike. Hi, Mike. You're late? Good. That's fine. You just missed Trump golden card. You got to go back. You can't, I mean, can you live without knowing what the hell that is? More like the bricks as a failing like a tin of, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree. And game theory, they're now saying actors versus Trump admin and stable notion state. Right. And it's like, I understand we have to compare things, but it's just a very shitty environment. And altogether, at the UN yesterday, I mean, first half of the day was all about like, people don't know what's going to happen. Trump is coming to address the UN on the September 23rd. I'll have a readout. Rubio is hinting that he's going to talk about DI and, like full fascist. And everybody's anticipating it, and they anticipate the reaction is going to be all awkward, right? Because at some point, like, yeah. And on the other hand, second half of the day yesterday was all devoted to US vetoing the ceasefire proposal at the UN Security Council. And I'll cover that too. Also leads to China. I mean, all the roads lead to Beijing at this point. Have you started learning Mandarin? We should. Now, serious talks here. Russia provoked NATO again. What did NATO do? Condemned. Whatever. Rutte said that we were so decisive. Our diarrhea was explosive and decisive. Now, in a serious escalation on NATO's eastern flank, here's a map. It's in Ukrainian. Forgive me, but I mean, I got to show you something. In a serious escalation on NATO's eastern flank, 3 Russian MiG-31 fighters, heavy interceptors capable of carrying hypersonic Kinjal missiles, violated Estonian airspace near Tallinn on Friday. The Tallinn is what's written there with the arrows leading to it. The jets flew without a flight plan, transponders, or radio contact, circling within roughly 5 miles, or like 9 kilometers, of the Estonian capital for 12 minutes. NATO's response: they quickly scrambled Italian F-35s, stealth fighters, from Amari base and in Estonia to intercept. So they got up, and Russians saw them and left. Now, we know they flew over Poland, right? They flew over, not they, MiGs at that point. These were Shahed drones. Flew over Poland for over 90 minutes, 24 of them. Some were knocked down, some not. I told you about the cost of knocking down them. The ratio is $280 to 1. You're knocking down a $10,000 Shahed drone. Or as Russians now call it, Geran, because it's produced in Russia, so it has to have a Russian name. You're knocking it out with a missile that cost $280,000. So very interesting, as Rutte calls decisive, but very interesting ratio in spending. Now, that was the reaction of NATO. Just drones, we're not really shooting them, we're escorting them. Okay, next, the drone was over Romania. Then the drones were over the residence of the Polish prime minister. And don't forget also before that, because we kind of tend to forget, after that red carpet meeting in Anchorage, Alaska, the Russian MiG planes, fighter jets, were flying over Alaska 5 times. And yes, American planes got up and escorted them out, but nothing really happened. This was over United States. Yes, I understand the whole internet is erupting. Putin is violating the territory of NATO. Oh my God, is Alaska territory of NATO, honey bunny? Yes. Did they fly over it 5 times after that goddamn meeting? Yes. Why don't we call that violation of NATO territory? Or are we just pleased to see them? Maybe next time we're just gonna dance, do some welcoming gesture. Now compare it to what Turkey did. Turkey is also a NATO member. Turkey, like Modi, like Indian Modi, is so good and flexible and being able to sit with one behind on 2 chairs. He's part of BRICS, Modi, I in BRICS, and also part of the Western civilization, talking to Canada, visiting G7, all that kind of stuff, right? Same with Turkey. Erdogan is a dictator. He's part of NATO because NATO needs Turkish army. It's quite strong. But also, he's very much involved with the BRICS. He is that partner organization, right? It's not the T-BRICS. Turkey's not in it. But, unofficially, he's at all the meetings. But what Turkey did, though, one time there was a MiG airplane, during the full invasion into Ukraine, was flying over Turkey. And then they said, oh, this was by accident because, there's Black Sea and we're just flying over Turkey. And Erdogan said, first and last warning. One more time, I shoot you down. Russia was like, okay. Next time. You know how long it took to shoot down MiG with a pilot? Not a Shahed drone. A fighter jet with a pilot. 17 seconds. That was his departure of this MiG plane. So you can do it unilaterally. We understand that Article 5 probably will never be called because everybody has a veto power and everybody is scared shitlessly. So why doesn't one country just decide to shoot a Shahed drone once or a MiG plane? Because did Russia interfere into Turkey's doings? Did they fly again? No. Putin is so pleased to see Erdogan. He is dancing every single time and doing some interesting gestures. Probably doesn't even send his clone, really meets with him. So, why this whole thing matters? By the way, the Turkey stuff was in 2015, right? And this is 2025. Now, the contrast underscores, right? The contrast what Turkey did, what the NATO does or doesn't do, underscores NATO's current caution and raises questions about how Moscow is actually seeing and evaluating NATO alliance's deterrence posture, right? Then there is a bigger picture, right? So Estonia sits on NATO's front line. Estonia is part of NATO, but it does sit at the border with Russia, right? And MiG-31s, armed with Kinjal hypersonic missiles, pose a direct strategic threat to both Baltic states and broader European security. The incident comes amid rising tensions across multiple fronts: Ukraine, the Arctic, and NATO's ongoing military exercises. Now, they also did fly over Polish offshore platform. So what do I mean by that? The 2 Russian fighter jets, same MiGs, carried out a low pass at just about 150 meters, very, very low, over Poland's Petro-Baltic oil and gas platform. That pin indicates where this was, right? Off the coast of Poland, in the Baltic Sea, violating the platform's designated safety zone. Now, Polish response was, Polish armed forces were placed on alert immediately after the incident. Authorities stressed the flight posed a direct threat to civilian infrastructure and workers. So they violate your airspace, and all you do is I gotta put my gear on, because what if they come to my house? Then I will fight. Really? Why this matters? The Petro-Baltic platform is a key Polish energy asset in the Baltic. Russia's low-altitude maneuver was both unsafe and provocative, escalating risks in one of NATO's most sensitive regions. The move follows Moscow's pattern of testing NATO readiness through airspace violations and harassment of strategic infrastructure. Now, what does European Union do? Today, they passed the 19th package of sanctions. No, they did not include ban on visas for Russian rich people to come into European Union. They would love to see their tourism being funded in rubles. So for that reason, they can still travel. Yulia Navalny, the widow of Navalny, said, "This is her big accomplishment." Not really. She advocated, she said, oh, you have to draw a distinction between Putin and regular Russians. Just to understand one thing, in Russia, you have elites, very rich people, and very, very poor people. So the usual people that Yulia is referring to, the poor people, are probably not even traveling. Those are the rich people. There's also a group of influencers by FSB, men dressed as women, very populating the airspace in the space on Instagram and TikTok. They're very, very popular on also YouTube. They do unpacking of very expensive bags, Hermes bags, and all that stuff, showing Russians what's on the market so they can travel and visit those spaces. I explained to you where 5% GDP donated or invested into self-defense per Trump's demands to Rute. To NATO's route it comes from. It comes from the cultural projects and arts. And so they, meaning European Union members, want to fund it through tourism. Hence, this kind of works. Okay, we discussed that on Thursday. If you missed it, go back and watch it. Now, what they did pass, they're now prohibiting any trade or any European member to buy LNG or make LNG purchases from Russia. They also have extended the shadow fleet that is now blacklisted. About 530 ships are blacklisted. They also said that, some countries like Estonia, for instance, said that they will stop buying gas from Russia by 2026. Now, they also have placed restrictions, not full tariffs, but restrictions on China and India, those who are sort of like working and purchasing from Russia and aiding the invasion. Then they also kept the oil price at 47 point some per barrel. So not really, sort of like at price value for Russia, not feeding the regime. But then for China, it kind of makes sense because they buy everything at price value. And also Russia and, Putin and Xi Jinping have signed an agreement to build the new pipeline that Russia will be sponsoring and so on and so forth. So how's that will affect? I don't know. We'll see. They also, though, said that they will be using the profits on Russian frozen assets in European Union, not the assets themselves, but the profits on them, to fund Ukraine's reconstruction. Not self-defense, not weapons, but reconstruction once the war is over. And then there's also an interesting thing. I put a whole article about that. I'll tag it here or go to honestnetwork.com. It's there. I shared it everywhere as well. That there's an interesting sentence there. So yeah, we're using the profits on those frozen assets, but until Russia is obligated to pay payout for reconstruction of Ukraine, right? So they pay the balance, so to speak. How's that going to work? I don't know. Will that ever happen? I don't know. I don't see Putin agreeing to pay for reconstruction of Ukraine, but at least it's something. Okay, so what Brussels also did, Orban, the pig of Hungary, he's very pro-Putin, openly so. Same as Slovakia's veto. Hungary and Slovakia still buy gas from Russia. This European Union did not really address. But Hungary obviously has veto power as part of European Union. And they have been slowing down the accession of Ukraine to European Union. So the acceptance of Ukraine into European Union. And so naturally at this point, as the actions show, right? Don't watch the tweets, watch the deeds. Europe is, they say they exercise diplomacy and soft power. You can also call it as bend over. European Commission is preparing to release $550 million to Hungary in hopes of ending Prime Minister Viktor Orban's veto against new EU sanctions on Russia. The Financial Times reports Brussels froze 22 billion euros in funds for Hungary in 2022 over rule of law concerns, but portions have since been released to buy Orban's corporation. In 2023, 10 billion euros were freed after Budapest dropped its objections to aid for Ukraine. The latest tranche reflects Orban's growing leverage inside the EU. By threatening vetoes at critical moments, he has turned frozen funds into bargaining chips, a strategy that keeps sanctions moving forward but raises questions about how much democratic backsliding Brussels is willing to tolerate. What I tried to explain multiple times, European Union is based on givers and receivers. It has no other context rather than financial, okay? So get your mind back. Givers, France, Germany, right? Sponsoring countries like Poland, Spain, including Hungary. So as a receiver country, should you have veto power if you alone go against the entire union, European Union, right? Or shall you put in sort of like a red zone or have given yellow card and suspend your veto power for a year because you misbehave, you go against the enemy, and this is the enemy. The explanation that Ukraine is not part of EU, so Russia is not our enemy because they invaded Ukraine, which has nothing to do with us, doesn't work anymore. Russian planes are flying over Estonia and Polish electric, whatever, base, whatever that is, right? Petro-Baltic, that thing called. And drones are flying over Poland and Romania. They are already your enemy. So you're buying Orban's veto? Very interesting. Now, as to UNGA, right, United Nations General Assembly is officially beginning on Monday, the high-level week. The assembly itself began 2 weeks ago. Rubio, Department of State announced that Secretary Rubio will be joining Trump in New York from September 22nd to 25th. Trump is set to address UN General Assembly on September 23rd. Now, Department of State said he will use the trip to push for the UN to get back to basics, describing its purpose as advancing peace, not functioning as a, quote, bloated bureaucracy that compromises national sovereignty and pushes destructive ideologies like DEI, end quote. I don't envy translators, because the translators at UN, like if you see it there, it's really cool, honestly. That's maybe one of the best things, rather than Rose Garden at the UN headquarters. The amount of translators and how they do translate in real time. So many languages, like all around the every single room and Congress Center and whatever. And for them to because Trump is going to mention DI 100 times, for them to explain what DI means and stands for. Can you imagine? You listen it to in your language, right? And they say, well, you are now a bloated bureaucracy that compromises national sovereignty, and you push destructive ideologies like diversity, equity, and inclusion. Can you imagine? That would feel like, well, but that's what's expected. Now, longer readout on Canada. Prime Minister Carney, obviously, he was in Mexico yesterday. They signed a 3-year deal with Mexico. I did cover it in the news briefing, in the newsletter yesterday, so please go read it, okay? Now, but we have some information what Prime Minister Carney will mention in his address to UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, by the way, the 80th year of the UN, where he will signal bold moves on Palestine and Ukraine. So Carney will travel to New York September 21st to 24th. I'm in a meeting with him on 22nd. Actually, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. He will obviously participate in UNGA. Now, in a statement, Carney framed the visit against a more dangerous and divided global landscape, pledging to strengthen partnerships, advance peace, and unlock economic opportunities for Canada. First, Middle East. Carney is expected to stress the urgent need to end the suffering of Palestinian civilians, demand immediate release of hostages held by Hamas, and call for progress toward just and lasting peace. Canada also intends to formally recognize the state of Palestine, conditional on key reforms and coordinated with international partners. By the way, source is Carney's office. So, on Ukraine, reaffirming support for Ukraine, Carney will highlight Ottawa's recent $2 billion in military aid announced in Kiev last month. On the margins of UNGA, he will co-host, that's the 23rd, meeting with President Zelensky to mobilize global leaders behind humanitarian efforts for the return of Ukrainian children taken by Russia. I didn't know Carney will be there, but I'll be there too. Yay. So I'll take you with me. I'll film and I'll show you all that happened there. Also, there will be a very populous meeting on, it's a Crimea summit, same as Ramstein, on military aid to Ukraine itself, mainland. But this is just the Crimea platform, so-called. Again, covering this on 24th. Now, Haiti and global economy. Now, this comes in addition to Ukraine and Palestine. Carney will also engage on efforts to stabilize Haiti's worsening crisis, and as G7 president, participate in UN summit on building a sustainable and resilient global economy. He will underscore Canada's leadership in reforming international financial institutions and strengthening development financing. As to economic diplomacy, Carney says, quote, "We have the resources the world needs and the values to which others aspire." Amen to that. At this hinge moment in history, Canada is leading with strength, creating new opportunities for Canadian workers and investing in peace, security, and reliable global partnerships, and to build safer, more resilient, and more prosperous world for all. Now, back to the shit show. United Nations Security Council met yesterday to vote on a resolution to demand ceasefire in Gaza and to open the gates, physically and metaphorically, for aid to come to Gaza. The votes were 14 in favor, 0 absent, and 1 against. One was United States. Take a look how this happened.
I put the draft resolution to the vote now. Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2025/583 please raise their hand? Those against?
Here's a picture of how she voted. I think this is the picture of Trump regime. They should go on logos. Go put it on the golden Trump card. Look, she's pretty. She's skinny and almost blonde on the way there. So put her on the card. That is the United States of America. That here should be instead of our Statue of Liberty. That's the state of affairs, not Statue of Liberty. State of affairs, right? Let me read the comment. This is funny. Sean says, I saw Lavrov on American media saying they don't target Ukrainian citizens. I detest that horseface. Yes, so yesterday at the UN, I'm coming in, 3rd floor. I mean, don't care. But anyway, at the UN headquarters, I go to 3rd floor. There's the ECOSOC, the Economic Council, that the meeting I was attending, but I went to UN General Assembly to take pictures, let's use it for editorial, yada, yada. Who do I bump into right away at the UN General Assembly? Horseface Lavrov. What do I say? I said, called him by his first and middle name, as appropriate, in Russian. I said, wow, you're not wearing your USSR gear. Sad. And he just hissed my last name. They're there. FSB was knocking and doing stuff to tables all over the assembly. I think they were planting some devices or whatever. I don't care. But anyway, at this point, this is funny. Lavrov. He does have second family in the United States. Obviously, that explains the early visit. But now there were protests. When I was leaving UN, the protests were just gathering. What was really standing out to me personally, that the folks, not just Jewish population was there, but Hasidic folks were joining pro-Palestine protest. There was a MAGA guy with a folded Trump flag. He felt so lonely. Then another guy came in with the Israeli/US flag, which kind of weird. And two of them were standing there trying to scream October 7, October 7. And but they were outpaced by pro-Palestinian protesters. But I posted a video of bunker looking like U.S. mission to UN, which now features 3 portraits, naturally Trump, J.D. Vance, and Rubio, right in the window, right? And that Trump shot, so sort of like is meant to scare people off. But protesters also cornered the U.S. ambassador. Let me try, is that this video or not? Take me. And they're all wearing red, and it's like a whole bit. Now, China's response. That's where I want us to focus for a little bit. Now, China's ambassador to UN voiced sharp criticism. He says, quote, China is deeply disappointed by the result of today's vote. The conflict in Gaza has been dragging on for nearly 2 years, causing an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe. Time and again, the Security Council has attempted to take actions only to be forcefully blocked by the United States. Is China lying? Not really. I was in the room, UN Security Council, in 2011. 14 years ago. This is where Condoleezza Rice voted against, right? Well, she represented, obviously, the United States, and they vetoed draft resolution condemning Israeli settlement activity, saying that this will put any peace negotiations under question and will undermine our progress. Now, 14 years later, same United States vetoing as the only permanent member of UN Security Council. What has changed? Nothing. Have you achieved something? Nothing. So, continued. How many more innocent lives must be lost, says China's ambassador to UN, before ceasefire can be achieved in Gaza? How many more tragedies will it take before humanitarian aid can flow unimpeded? How much longer do we have to wait before the Security Council fulfills the responsibilities? Now, the U.S. remains instant and sole consistent blocker of ceasefire resolutions at the Security Council. Washington argues that resolutions must account for Israel's right to self-defense and the need to prevent Hamas from regrouping. Meanwhile, humanitarian agencies continue to warn of catastrophic conditions in Gaza as the war approaches the 2-year mark. Now, something that I want to show you that is, prove me wrong, or tell me that I'm wrong, but I think it was not mentioned on mainstream media or legacy media, that there was a forum. I'm going to butcher this name in China. It's called Xiangshan Forum. The forum is a diplomatic forum in Beijing between Israel and China, which then featured diplomatic sparks, so to speak, that were exchanged in unusually heated words at that 12th forum. Yang Xitong is a prominent professor at Tsinghua University. He challenged Israeli military officer over Gaza, accusing Israel of killing more than 70,000 civilians. Now, if you know anything about China, they're very restricted in what they say and how they say, and even the facial expressions. So for them to speak that way is really out of order, right? So I'm going to show you the full conversation. It's 2 minutes 40 seconds, and it's the camera is focused on the Israeli official. Now, then I'm going to turn for just 1 minute to show you that it is real. And then we're going to face the Chinese representative. Take a look.
The real reason of this war is that this is the terror organization Hamas that's still holding our hostages. So the replace the UN, you suggest, sound very smart between countries. What we need to do about the terror organization?
My answer is very clear.
Yeah.
Your military people should shoot the terrorists, not the children, not the women. When you shoot the children and the women, and you lack legitimacy to carry out any actions in that reason. For instance, and when we have the robbers get in the bank, they rob the bank, they use the staff and the customer as a human shield. You're a policeman. If you do not kill the staff, bank staff, and the customer, you cannot catch the robbers. How can you do it? Do you think you should kill the customer and the staff first?
We really do all what we can not to hurt the citizens.
You kill more than 70,000 civilians.
No,
there are more than the terrorists.
This is not fact, right?
Okay.
Really?
The fact is not decided by you. The facts decided by the international community. It's not decided by your government. Your government have no legitimacy and the right to decide or defend what is fact. Okay.
The terror
military people should shoot the terrorists, not the children, not the women.
We really do all what we can not to hurt the citizens. For example, these days, actually today,
you kill more than 70,000 civilians.
No.
So you saw that, right? You have the right to think what you think, but you don't have the right to your own facts. That's the main message of China. Now, at the same time, China's foreign ministry legal advisor told the International Court of Justice, now we're talking about The Hague, that Palestinians have the right to armed resistance under international law, citing UN resolutions and regional treaties. Beijing's explicit framing, what distinguishes their framing from US and Western framing, is that they say it's an armed struggle from terrorism, right? It's underscoring how Gaza has become a geopolitical wedge point far beyond the Middle East. So they say Palestinians have the right to protect themselves, right? Meanwhile, the Western part of the world says, well, Hamas is there, so you have to eliminate Hamas because Hamas is not really the real Palestinians. So let me show the video by Chinese representative speaking in The Hague to International Court of Justice.
The UNGA resolution 3070 of 1973, I quote, reaffirms the legitimacy of the people's struggle for liberation from colonial and foreign domination and alien subjugation by all available means, including armed struggle, end of quote. This recognition is also reflected in international convention. For example, the Arab Convention for Suppressing of Terrorism of 1998 affirms, I quote, the right of peoples to combat foreign occupation, aggression by whatever means, including armed struggle. In order.
So that's China's stance. And so Palestine is becoming the issue between China and the West, right? And the West is actually aligned behind a two-state solution, actually going now in line with Chinese stance. So it's United States versus everyone. United States plus Israel plus smaller African countries that do depend solely on US aid versus, per UN vote, versus everyone else. So, as to Denmark, Denmark is buying long-range precision weapons to deter Russia. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen announced that Denmark will acquire long-range precision weapons as part of broader effort to strengthen deterrence against Russia. Here's her video. Please take a look.
De udtalelser, der er kommet fra Rusland, følger det, vi har set igennem en længere periode. De forsøger at true os europæere direkte med krig i Ukraine, med sabotage, med forskellige angreb på kritisk infrastruktur og med deres ord til, at det er dem, der skal bestemme over Europas fremtid. Og det bliver ikke Rusland, der kommer til at bestemme Europas fremtid. Det skal vi europæere. At det ikke er nok, at man kan forsvare sig med luftforsvar, som vi jo er i gang med at indkøbe til et meget, meget stort milliardbeløb. Man bliver også nødt til at ture og ville og have evnen til at kunne afskrække Rusland i sidste ende. Og altså, vi ønsker ikke hverken en konflikt eller en krig med Rusland. Det har ingen i Europa et ønske om. Der er kun en af.
So what she says, quote, "It's not enough to be able to defend oneself with air defense systems, which we are currently purchasing for many, many billions. One must also dare and want to have the capability to deter Russia ultimately. We do not want either a conflict or a war with Russia. No one in Europe wants that. There is only one aggressive party, and that's Russia. Russia has shown again and again that they want conflict. They want war in another country. If we do not dare to stand up for ourselves and do what needs to be done, we will simply be too easy a target at some point. Everything we're doing right now is to avoid war, but words simply do not work anymore. I know that it is my responsibility to take care of Denmark, and our assessment is that we cannot do that without this acquisition." So Denmark is waking up. Obviously, Denmark is in charge of Greenland. And so for them, it's a double threat. It's really not the Denmark mainland, but more so Greenland that Trump is very eager to acquire one way or another. Now, Trump's sanctions playbook, let's review that. So European diplomats now believe Trump is deliberately setting the EU impossible condition for sanctions against Russia, ensuring they can never be met and giving him cover to avoid taking action himself. Oh, aren't you fast? You are so fast. Wow. You woke up sooner than a year. You just took what? 7 months? Wow. According to sources, Trump demanded that EU completely end purchases of Russian oil and gas and impose tariffs on India and China. I explained it extensively throughout this week that this would actually hurt Europeans if they impose tariffs on China and India, because economy 101 it just teaches you that those type of tariffs are actually a tax on your importers and ultimately and to consumers. So both conditions are seen as politically and economically unattainable, especially for countries like Hungary and Slovakia, whose leaders maintain close ties with Trump. And by the way, Trump never asks them to do anything. Same as China is pushing Poland to reopen its border with Belarus, because it hurts them. They're losing and about to lose 25 billion euros per year in trade. I showed you the map last time. It's not really a trade between, Belarus and Poland. It's a whole circle. They are importing goods in one country and then it gets delivered all in a circle. So once that border is closed, then the circle is obviously having disturbances, so to speak. And so, but China did not ask Putin to withdraw or stop invading Poland. They asked Poland to reopen the border. So why are we always demanding the victim to make concessions and, do something for the abuser? It never works, right? Same as buying Orban's veto. Come on. Now, Russian President Putin claims that more than 700,000 Russian soldiers are currently deployed along the front, while Chief of General Staff Valery Gerasimov described ongoing offenses along the entire front line. Now, we're talking about the front line from Finland to Greece. According to the Institute of the Study of War, for the Study of War, ISW. These statements are not just propaganda, but part of deliberate strategy. Drag the war out, leverage Russia's numerical advantage, and wait for Western resolve to crack. Analysts say Putin genuinely believes Moscow can outlast Ukraine's allies, exhausting Kiev's armed forces until resistance collapses. Now, Zelensky doesn't really agree. Today, he issued a statement that Ukraine is now mostly using missiles and drones that it produces itself. All it needs is money, right? From those frozen assets, or at least the profits on the frozen Russian assets by the EU. And hence, they don't see the need to ask Washington what they should strike and how far and how deep, right? So that's the thing. Now, former national security advisor for Vladimir Putin, or to Vladimir Putin, has given an interview. I include the full interview in today's, it's a 13-minute interview with subtitles from Russian into English in today's news briefing, so please watch it there. I'm not going to waste our time showing it here, but essentially what he says. Now, this is the guy who worked with Putin for decades. Andrei Ilarionov, that's his name, former Putin advisor, delivered a stark warning after recent Russian drone attacks on Poland. Quote, NATO is dead. The US denied Article 5 for Poland. And that's exactly what Putin sees. Ilarionov has long cautioned that Putin's strategic arm in negotiations with Trump is to undermine NATO, stripping Europe of the US security umbrella and opening the way for wider invasion. North Korea. Did you miss Kim Jong-un? Here he is. You know what that is behind him? North Korea has unveiled its largest generation of large drones. The latest generation of large drones. This is the drone. With leader Kim Jong-un personally attending the tests, Kim declared that the transition to unmanned systems will now be the Army's primary and most important tasks. Here's the background. Pyongyang first presented combat drones in 2024, around the time it deployed troops in Russia. Experts widely believe Moscow is assisting North Korea's drone development, deepening military cooperation between the two isolated states. The move underscores a broader global shift toward drone warfare and highlights how the Russia-North Korea partnership is reshaping security risks in both Asia and Europe. Kim Jong-un, obviously, his great-grandfather was born in Russia, so there are ties. Now, I want to show you some quotes. Here's a quote from Trump. He says, "We're trying to get the Bagram air base in Afghanistan back. That base is an hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. Didn't you know that when you signed to withdraw from Afghanistan and gifted them all the military equipment that they're parading every year now? You didn't know that then? You just found out this now? You signed the withdrawal. Biden did that massacre when people were jumping on planes. Now you want to go back? Really? Smart." On September 18, Trump announced that the U.S. is seeking to reclaim Bagram Airfield, abandoned during 2021 withdrawal, framing it as strategic asset against China. Now, here's a sweet quote from President Sheinbaum. This was during the presser with Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, in Mexico City yesterday, where she talked about the increasing Canadian tourism to Mexico. It's a cute quote, sort of palate cleanse. Take a look.
I didn't say this in the meeting, Prime Minister Carney, but I'm saying it right now. We celebrate constant growth of Canadian tourism in Mexico. We truly celebrate it because we have an increasingly growing number of families and visitors coming to Mexico as their tourist destination. We express our will to continue facilitating this because this strengthens human cultural ties and also economic ties between our two societies.
So diplomacy can be also a good thing. And Canadians travel to Mexico. I mean, the weather is good. The food is great. What do you miss? Florida? Now, no disrespect. Florida is fantastic. Now, another quote. Really, remember Cardinal Timothy Dolan, the one that did the fundraiser for children with Trump during the election season? And he was seated next to Trump. and he was reported on that. This was like a year ago at this point. He was like elbowing Trump and said, "Oh, at this fundraiser, there's no poor people. There's no poor people." Remember that guy? Yeah. His quote. This is Cardinal Timothy Dolan. Quote, "This guy," he's talking about Charlie Kirk on Fox and Friends today. "This guy is a modern day St. Paul. He was a missionary. He is a hero. He is one, I think, that knows what Jesus meant when he said, 'The truth will set you free.'" Unquote. Now, as to quick news, vaccines. You ain't gonna get one. Federal vaccine advisors appointed by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Voted to limit MMRV shot for children under 4. RFK's Jr.'s vaccine advisors have also declined to recommend COVID-19 vaccines for all Americans and even for high-risk groups. The guidance now emphasizes choice and shared clinical decision-making. Northeastern states plan to issue their own vaccine recommendations following Western states, a direct rebuke to Trump's administration. Meanwhile, measles in Texas. Doctors hoped a measles outbreak would boost vaccination rates in Texas, but few people changed their minds. Well, maybe there's not much to change. ICE arrests 11 Democratic officials in New York, Lower Manhattan, yesterday, including city controller Brad Lander, who was running for mayor during the primaries, were arrested. 11 of them were arrested after demanding access to ICE detention cells in Manhattan. So I guess they showed them how the cells look like from inside. Now, EPA on polluters. The EPA said it will hold polluters accountable for cleaning up forever chemicals linked to serious health risks. Now, as to foreign aid shift, the Trump administration will bypass NGOs in its new approach to foreign health aid while making Africa a lower priority. Dignified. As to climate warning, a new study warns that wildfire smoke could kill 70,000 Americans annually by 2050, making it one of the deadliest climate-related threats. And a federal judge temporarily blocked the deportation of hundreds of Guatemalan children, ruling the government gave misleading testimony. And as to Air Force, the Air Force is launching a new cultural fitness campaign promoting exercise, nutrition, and holistic well-being for both airmen and guardians. I guess air women don't have to follow that stuff. As to Charlie Kirk's company, the Turning Point USA, and their leadership, Erica Kirk, the wife, the widow now, will take over leadership of Turning Point USA, and the memorial service is at the arena in Arizona, is scheduled for this Sunday. Texas A&M controversy. The president of Texas A&M will step down after backlash over a children's literature course that acknowledged more than 2 genders. Small business cuts. A memo from Secretary Troy Mink reduces the Air Force's small business office to 1 staffer. So what had happened before, Pentagon would work with small businesses when it came to anything that Pentagon needed. Now they removed that office. They left 1 person in charge, sparking alarm over the rollback of 15 years of outreach efforts. And government is the biggest purchaser. And new, which I mentioned, Trump is introducing $100,000 application fee for H-1B visa petitions. Now, quick global news. A group of Democratic senators introduced legislation urging Trump to recognize demilitarized Palestinian state, the first such measure proposed in the U.S. Senate. And this is where the Western, everybody but America, the Western part plus China, that's what they're not gonna agree with when it comes to demilitarized. I understand what Mark Carney put together, and I said this was the smartest proposal when he said that Palestine has to demilitarize and they have to essentially have reliable citizen leadership, so then they can together with the international community create some type of system that would also defend them from threats. Now, this pushes for demilitarized Palestinian state, but it's not really 2-state solution. So it's a slippery slope here in Congress. Now, laser defenses, both Israel and Ukraine are now using laser system to shoot down drones, a cheaper and more efficient alternative to missiles. Okay, now Gaza. Ahead of its push into Gaza City, Israel ordered Palestinians to evacuate, but widespread destruction and cramped humanitarian zones make safe movement nearly impossible. So it comes down to Israel rolling over 500,000 people. China's new drone. That's what I mentioned yesterday on BBC. And a lot of you liked what I said, but a lot of you also said, oh, this was like who? I don't think this is who. I began with recognizing the facts. Holocaust happened, October 7th happened, which is horrific, unprovoked, horrible. But now the new fact is this an excuse to roll over 500,000 people? And if you're okay with this fact, then be okay with consequences, because that circus travels, and that circle will travel to you. Because if we don't condemn such behavior, and worse, if we don't prohibit such behavior from continuing, then this will become normality. So mass slaughter of 500,000 people, is that okay? Yeah. Now, there's a new drone, not just in North Korea, but also in China. A satellite image captured a secretive Chinese test base near Malan in Xinjiang that shows what appears to be previously unseen stealth flying wing drone with a distinctive cranked kite design. Interesting. Now, as to global news, quick readout. In response to Russian drone intrusion into Polish airspace on September 10th, France has deployed 3 Rafale fighter jets under NATO's new activity, Eastern Sentry. Operating alongside the Polish Air Force, French pilots are now 24/7 on quick response alert, prepared to identify, intercept, or destroy incoming threats. Macron, sir. They are awarding him on 24th. I'm at that fancy-ass dinner. Maybe I can convince or ask or whatever. Maybe you can shoot a drone. You know, Turkey did. You want to do it? I mean, people nickname you Napoleon for no. Come on, just show something that you have. Yes, maybe, no. It takes one, honestly. We don't have to wait for Article 5. Somebody grab yourself by a pair and just shoot a drone. You don't have to shoot a MiG, whatever. Shoot a drone so Russia knows that you are capable of doing something, that you're not fully impotent. Come on now. Now, NATO exercise, Bulgaria 2025. Now, this went unreported. So, from September 7th to 12th, more than 1,000 participants from 28 NATO allies, 18 partner countries, and 14 organizations joined Bulgaria 2025, one of the world's largest civil emergency drills this year. The exercise tested disaster response, cyber defense, disinformation resilience, and CBRN operations. Teams from Europe, NATO, partners including Ukraine, Moldova, and Azerbaijan, which Trump calls Azerbaijan, took part in aerial reconnaissance, rescue operations, and joint training. Compared, 40,000, no, what was it? 100,000 Russians practiced in 42 locations last month. 1,000, okay. Well, climate targets. Australia announced 2035 emissions cut by 62 to 70% below 2005 levels. Meanwhile, EU failed to reach consensus on a binding target, but pledged an agreement ahead of COP in November. COP, right? That gathering where they pledge to reduce emissions by a certain percentage. As to Gulf security cooperation, the GCC agreed to expand intelligence sharing, missile warning systems, and joint air defense drills after Israel's strike on Hamas. Leaders in Qatar carried out without prior notifications to Doha. And by the way, yesterday, I put it in the newsletter yesterday, is that Saudi Arabia signed this deal with Pakistan that attack on one is attack on all. And altogether, what Saudi Arabia is doing, and that part of the world, right, the Middle East is doing, they are creating pacts with each other and ultimately even with China because they don't trust US at this moment. Colombian Peace Court rulings. That's interesting here. Colombia's Special Reparations Court delivered its first sentences under the 2016 peace deal. Former FARC rebels convicted of kidnappings will aid memorial and demining projects, while ex-soldiers involved in killings must now provide services to victims' families. I think that's nice. Afghanistan bans internet. The Taliban cut fiber optic internet in 6 provinces, citing a campaign to prevent immorality such as raiding. Mobile internet remains active, but rights groups warn that it's the first Wi-Fi ban since 2021, raising concerns over censorship and access. Concerns? Really? Raising concerns? They're banning your internet and calling that immoral, or internet calling immoral. And there's Ebola in DRC. So a new Ebola outbreak in Democratic Republic of Congo has killed 31 people this month across 4 districts. It's the first outbreak in 3 years, and notably the first without U.S. support. The WHO is appealing for $21 million to bolster response efforts. And that's, I think, what they're going to focus on at the Bill Gates Foundation meeting that I'm attending next week. And I'll take you with me, and I'll report, and I'll show you videos, and I'll tell you all about it. Certainly that is huge. Why? Because people travel, because that stuff will end up here, and we will be infecting not just us, but also everybody, because we also further, travel. Think about how COVID spread and how fast that was, right? Check your comments real quick. Sean says, I stand with my PM Mark Carney. Yes. Us too. Michael says most of us do also, right? Yes, we all agree. It's just glad having adults in the room. My gosh, shudder to think what. Yes. With PP would have won. I can't even imagine. Honestly, I can't. The guy is so self-focused, but also lacks stamina, also lacks any type of presence. As much as CBC is praising him as the most, what do they say, most experienced debater or whatever in Parliament. Very experienced in poop throwing competitions, but okay. And here's some special coverage, right? So today there was a meeting with Patriarch Bartholomew. I just learned how to pronounce it because I was pronouncing it the Russian way. So Bartholomew at CFR on democracy, nationalism, and the path to healing. And this was the most profound speech that I have heard lately, and that I honestly, without realizing it, hoped for. So he's 85. He had a bunch of meetings at the UN yesterday. So today he did not accept any questions. One representative was accepting questions. My question was not accepted, but anyway. It all was most likely, most importantly about climate, because it's also Climate Week in New York with 1,000 events, literally 1,000 events. So they focused on climate, and essentially the person who was answering questions said that, you have to pronounce like hurting your planet as a sin. So that's when folks with strong beliefs will follow the notion. Well, that's debatable if that's the good idea, but whatever. I mean, probably is a good idea. Isn't that a sin to destroy what made you? So now, a day after attending the UN, Patriarch delivered prepared remarks, and here's what he talked about. First, he focused on the American experiment. And first, he noted that obviously U.S. is approaching its 250th anniversary next year. And the Patriarch praised the founders for designing a system of checks and balances meant to safeguard freedom, not least from ourselves. Quote, our free will allows us to choose between right and wrong. The founding fathers put the system in place to protect us from ourselves. The American experiment has been a success. But he warned of a global drift toward charismatic authoritarianism, corruption, and unchecked power, not only in the government, but also in business, academia, and other parts of society. As to religion versus nationalism, Bartholomew spoke sharply against the fusion of religion and nationalism, calling it a force of division and bloodshed. Religion, he argued, is meant to unite. Nationalism puts one tribe above the other, or above others. He condemned efforts to organize churches along ethnic or racial lines. He directly criticized the Russian Orthodox Church's embrace of Ruski Mir, right, the Russian Mir, Russian world, so to speak, ideology, and its support for Putin's imperialism, saying Ukrainians' long struggle for religious freedom has been met with Moscow's oppression. He started from 1917 to what happened 3 years ago to what happens now. Then he spoke about his faith in the Holy Land, turning them to Middle East. The Patriarch expressed sorrow over both the October 7th Hamas attacks and the continued suffering in Gaza. Quote, "Today, Christians are a minority in Palestine. We ask to find a path to prosperity for Christians, Jews, and Muslims, and will support such solution." End quote. Then the path to healing. He concluded with reflections on healing a divided world. He spoke about social media. He said it has deepened polarization by reinforcing biases and fueling extremism. Quote, "Without fundamental beliefs, we become unanchored. Today, we have conspiracies, cults of celebrity, radical politics, all substitutes for religion." End quote. He urged a return to faith as a unifying anchor, reminding that religion at its core transcends race, politics, and division. And, what I didn't mention here, but he literally said, we were so surprised that the current U.S. administration is using religion as the foundation of their cult. Like, I mean, I will make sure to find the video and share it with you. It's about 10 minutes, the speech, so I really would encourage you to watch it. It's really, really interesting. Now, quickly, today in history, 1941, Nazi Germany captured Kiev during Operation Barbarossa, leading to mass atrocities in Ukraine. In 1985, magnitude 8.0 earthquake struck Mexico City, killing thousands and reshaping the nation's disaster preparation. Also, millions took part in global climate strikes led by youth activists calling for urgent action ahead of UN Climate Summit in 2019, and a bunch of other things that I also put in your newsletter. Now, quickly, I promise to finish off on a positive note or sarcastic, funny, silly, whatever. So remember, I told you that Meta was hosting their AI conference where they would be presenting something very innovative, where somebody would be wearing glasses and then they would be wearing a band. And then they can just like put motions in air and they can scroll and tip. So you would do whatever you do with your phone, but without the phone. And so all of that stuff that was so hyped actually failed in reality and demonstration. Take a look.
Make a Korean-inspired steak sauce using soy sauce, sesame oil.
What do I do first? What do I do first?
You've already combined the base ingredients, so now grate a pear to add to the sauce.
What do I do first?
You've already combined the base ingredients, so now grate the pear and gently combine it with the base sauce.
All right, I think the Wi-Fi might be messed up. Sorry, back to you, Mark. It's all good. You know what? It's all good. It's, the irony of the whole thing is that you spend years making technology and then the Wi-Fi at the day kind of catches you. All right, anyway, we'll go check out what he made later. Okay.
So I was just reading, Trump finally sent the EOs. One of them is weird. National POW Prisoners of War Recognition Day. Okay, so he's recognizing the day of World War II for some reason. Okay, anyway, but those are the executive orders that I mentioned right in the beginning. So Meta stuff failed, and then Mark was actually also delivering whatever and showcasing how you do. So this was something that I guess they create some type of a Siri thing or Alexa. And when Mark was doing that stuff with whatever in the air, it didn't function at all. So, but they kept going through it, which was quite hilarious. Now, something, it's not tasty at all, but I want to show you. Remember, well, as you know, Russians have captured Donbass region for quite a while, or Donetsk specifically. And so they installed their Miss Donbass there. This is the Russian woman that is featured in the media, and she does a lot of like legacy media, but also social media promotions, and she records advertising. But she has a very particular look. This is the Russian Miss Donbass that is advertising the invasion and annexation of lands. Take a look.
Понятно. Медленно, но уверенно. Алина, я не могу подняться. Ага, сейчас куда-нибудь. Подожди, потихонечку. Подожди, куда еду. Подожди, куда там. Куда, до себя? Да. Что это?
So this is advertisement for whatever she was on. I don't know if you could see, but there's a lot of stuff going on with the face. And lastly, this week, there was a flight. Civilians were on this flight to Corsica. And, before they landed, their pilots obviously requested permission to land. But the person in the tower fell asleep. And so for 18 minutes, they were just cruising all over before they landed in Corsica. Now, people had, took it with a sort of, with a smile, so to speak. And they said, like, it's so interesting that the landing was prohibited by a nap. So take a look how this went. Obviously, also yesterday I shared the video where Spirit Airlines flight and almost colluded with the Air Force One when Trump was flying to London. So that video I shared there, where the control tower ultimately told the Spirit pilots, get off your iPad, come on. But they were 58 seconds away from colluding with Trump. Okay, done. We're done. Yes. So, done covering this. So I'm going to send you the newsletter in just a bit. And so you can read it. There's more information that I didn't mention. So it will be still interesting, even though you tuned in here. Now, what I encourage you to watch is obviously our Curating Culture project. The first episode was about the New York City's Hidden Museum of Peace. This is the person, Nicholas Roerich, who created what later became UNESCO. And then the second episode is from Shabazz Center, Malcolm X's Legacy. And you can see how the place where he got assassinated looks like now. And it's became a center taken care of under the leadership of one of his daughters. So this latest episode is 7 minutes, 40 seconds. Come on now. And the first episode is 44 minutes. So if you watch it, this would be fantastic. The whole idea behind Curating Culture is to take you into the spaces that may be a bit hidden, not very, presented in the mass media. So on this Sunday, there's going to be an episode about UN headquarters. Believe me, I spent yesterday hours recording content about Rose Garden in UN, at the UN headquarters in New York. Did you know it exists? It does. Different gifts. I posted yesterday a picture, beautiful gift from Canada. There's gifts from all countries. I take you inside the rooms, different conference halls. So you can see how UN sort of looks like from within, which it was wonderful because it wasn't that full, right? Because when UNGA starts, the UN General Assembly, it's super full. Like you stand in line to get anywhere. But there, I show you like gift shops. It's so cute. It has like different jewelry, handmade jewelry from different countries, and so on and so forth. So you'll get a bit of an insight into UN HQ, and that I will put out on Sunday. It's not going to be that long, about 10 minutes, but you'll get a view. All right? Okay. I wish you a peaceful weekend. Please keep your head on a swivel. That's the most important part. Tune the news out, right? Don't watch something too much that doesn't enhance your well-being, because it's a marathon. It's a long run. Okay, we gotta outlast everything. So take care of you. It's a good weather here in New York, so I hope you are also enjoying some some summertime a little bit. Check on the comments. Happy Friday, says Michael. Happy Friday, says Peter. Well, thanks, Peter. Thank you, Sean. Thank you for joining here. So appreciate you, and welcome to our family. All right, so again, thank you for commenting. Have a peaceful weekend. See you Monday. I definitely will be live on Monday. And I'll tell you when I will be then tuning in during the week. Remember, next week, 27 events to cover. A lot of events on Tuesday. First, they start already on Sunday. So Clinton Global Initiative, I think, is on Tuesday. So I'm going to take you everywhere. So I will be releasing videos from all those events. Also reporting on them in the newsletter. And I will see when I can go live. But certainly Friday and certainly Monday. Okay? Thank you so much. Have a peaceful weekend, and thank you for being here.